Welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast with your host, Lorna Poole, sharing the secrets to creating wealth, investing, and that all-important money mindset. To find out more and accelerate your journey to financial freedom, head on over to www.lornapoole.com to get started. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast. This is really, really, really important. Money and self-worth, okay? I'm going to let Katherine Dean explain it. She's our guest expert today. She is known as the financial empowerment woman because her experience in the financial industry has helped hundreds of business owners, individuals, couples, and women create path to wealth. She's the founder of Living Your Worth and the popular programs like Wealth to Freedom Formula and the Wealthy Women Within. Katherine has her MBA and has spent 20 years guiding people with their financial goals on their financial freedom path. She currently runs 3 businesses, not 1, 3, collects multiple streams of passive incomes, and kickstart her path to wealth once she stepped into her worth. This is so important. I can't wait to share this. She will enlighten you to use your vision for the future from where you are right now to empowering your career, finances, and gain financial confidence and independence to create your dream. Katherine, great to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here with you today. So I'm ready to get started to share how you can be wealthy when you own your worth. So cool. This is such a great conversation. A woman-to-woman conversation all about freedom. It's great.
Yeah, and people don't really think about, how I think about myself is reflecting in my money.
Is that not one of the, I could give you an example of myself, just where I was. I have multiple degrees, kept going back to school thinking that was going to make me feel worthy of an income I wanted to generate, right? And finally, after the last time I went, I actually went for a degree, I decided, you know what? How many more degrees am I going to get before I show up for my worth? Like, I was never negotiating for certain income, certain salary. I was holding myself back. Really, a lot of it was all in my brain, and it was all mental. I wasn't showing up for who I was, that worthy person to generate the income I wanted to. And I was playing what I consider a small game. I was showing up. I was an executive. At one time, I was managing 18 people. And I was getting paid peanuts for what I was actually doing because I was allowing that company to pay me what I was showing up for, right? I wouldn't negotiate. I wouldn't hold my ground. I wasn't okay to walk away. And when I finally started to own my worth is actually when I tripled my income. It's amazing how all of a sudden it was like, it wasn't an overnight process, but it was one of those processes that I started to shift as soon as I said, wait, how many more degrees am I going to get? Like, let's just start there. Why am I getting all these degrees? Why am I, perpetually going back to college? For what purpose? I do believe in personal development, but that's different than getting degree to prove myself, right? And I think it was one of those things that I grew up and I was a female, growing up. I graduated high school back in the 90s, and I just didn't think that I was worthy enough to get the income. I felt like I had to work so darn hard for it, right? And once that whole mental shift happened, everything shifted in my life. It was like, oh, I can have passive income. Wait, I can own 3 businesses. And it started out as one business, right? And then it turned into another and then another because I was like, wait, oh yeah, I can do that too. But not until I actually peeled back that curtain did everything else open up for me. So truth be told, I was living a very small life for a long time, a life where other people would say, oh, wait, you weren't always making that income? No, because I always thought I had to really kill myself and just prove to other people. And when I stopped waiting for somebody to accept me or say, yes, you're worth it, when I started owning my worth myself is when everything shifted. So really distinguish there that you don't have to allow other people to show up and say you're worth it, you have to own it for yourself. So it's a lot of it's internal.
Isn't it funny how we always seek others' approval before we give it to ourselves?
Amazing. And that, my entire life, that's what I was doing. And then about 8 years ago, I went through a divorce where I was not financially set up. I literally had us rocking our grandchildren together, so I had no idea it was happening. And I had a 1 and 3-year-old at home and could not afford my mortgage. And I said, something's wrong here. Like, I'm a highly educated person. I have a really good job. But what was happening for me was all of a sudden that, wait a second, I'm living somebody else's dreams. I'm always seeking their approval, like you just said. And when all of that shifted and I started to put my roadmap together, I started to figure out, okay, so I never want to ever have that financial rug ripped out from underneath me. So what do I have to do? And that organically turned into a business, right? Because there are so many women out there that don't show up for their worth. They fear the money conversation. They lack negotiating for increase in salary or increased pricing in their businesses. And organically, it turned into this incredible business where I get to see women transform their relationship with money. It's incredible. It's incredible what women can do when you see that light bulb and that whole shift and transformation in their lives. It's incredible what they do. And when women start to own who they are and they show up for their brilliance and their expertise and everything there is aligned in their lives, it just totally shifts who they are. It shifts their entire environment. People don't recognize them for who they were 5 minutes ago, 5 years ago, a year ago. It's just really incredible what happens.
It sounds like as well that if 8 years ago you went through a divorce and found yourself in this place, that you've done this in quite a remarkable time.
Yeah, that it was, I'd say, about a year to 3 years for the emotional part of it. I'm not going to lie. I mourned the divorce more than I mourned a parent passing. And reason being is I was on this trajectory with 2 kids. I literally live in the happiest town in America. We were voted that white picket fence golden retriever. Yeah. And no joke. And he's still downstairs. He's still in my house. He's 13. He's almost 14 years old. And when that all happened, it was a huge eye opener for me. It was like, oh my goodness, what just happened to me? And how can I never let this happen again and actually live the life that's aligned for my values, aligned for who I am? And that's where the shift started to happen. So organically, I didn't come to this end result within a day. It has been over the course of time and, meeting incredible entrepreneurs and business owners and being surrounded by that environment that has really shifted where I went. And that's what happens when I work with people. That's why I find it really exciting when I sit down with somebody and I totally can get into their worlds because I've been there. I've been in the trenches. I know what it's like to not be able to afford your mortgage and to have a boatload of credit card debt. And it was one of those things I started to have fun with fear again. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have fun with fear. Okay. I'm terrified to open a business, but you know what? I'm also terrified to be 20 years down the line going, I should have done that because it was a 15-year dream I had held on to for way too long. So a lot of that self-worth does start to equal wealth because when you start to own your worth and you start to share your brilliance with the world, the wealth does start to come. And wealth can come in many different forms, right? Happiness, like wealth can equal happiness. It can equal alignment, lack of frustration, owning a business. It could be making more income. It could be putting money aside for yourself. It could be buying an investment property. So wealth varies for so many different people, and wealth just necessarily isn't all money, right? Mm-hmm. To live a wealthy life is to be happy and congruent with everything you're doing. It's definitely not always having $1 million. I know a ton of people that are extremely wealthy and still miserable. And that all comes back to value system, what you're doing, how you're showing up, who you're interacting with, all of that. It's an all-encompassing life that you're living.
So if someone's listening to this today, right, and they're hearing this and they're getting inspired, but they feel that self-worth and their money is where you were, a couple of years ago, how did she start to change the self-worth part of that?
You can really start with a daily affirmation. I say daily, but I write something down that's positive, that's aligned with your heart-centered person, whoever that is inside of you, and read that aloud in front of a mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror and read that aloud twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. And I share that because that's really where I started was, okay, I know where I'm at now. Like I knew I was financially in a bad place. I knew emotionally I was in a bad place, but I knew if I could speak to that future person and what I wanted and where I wanted to be, it would help me pull through that moment of where I felt really in a terrible space. I know where that person is right now that you're speaking about. And I started to do daily affirmations. It was one affirmation I read to myself for over 3 months. Mm-hmm. And then I changed it after 3 months. And I sobbed when I first did it in front of the mirror and I looked at myself, because that was when I had that aha moment, that realization that I was not showing up for my brilliance. I wasn't showing up for my greatness. I wasn't showing up for the person I wanted to be. I was showing up for what everybody else wanted me to be. Mm-hmm. And it was a moment of self-discovery. It was a self-discovery of I don't own my worth. I really lack my self-worth. I lack the confidence. And of course, that's, I'm always working on it. There are days.
What kind of affirmation for self-worth? What kind of an affirmation would you use?
For instance, and speak to yourself in the first person, which I know it sounds awkward. It's going to be awkward, but it does work. So for instance, Katherine, you're worth whatever the income is, whatever that income was, you're worth showing up in the world. You can own multiple businesses. You can make profitable businesses work. Your children love you. So I'm trying to think. I wish I had my first one written down here that I could read it to you. Then it also went into the environment I was surrounded by, meaning, your friends will love you regardless of what you do. You might look a little differently to them by owning a business or not being the person that you were, yesterday or a week ago. And that's okay. I gave myself permission also to have bad days, because everybody's going to have some sort of bad day, or as a business owner, entrepreneur, there are stumble blocks along the way. Or even if you work for somebody, you are going to have those days. But I gave myself the permission. And that, I think, is very key to understand, is when you give yourself permission, you're allowing yourself to just be you. And not trying to...
as well, with self-worth, just as you're speaking there, this popped into my head, that we think small. Like, as someone who, you're saying these I statements, I can earn 100,000 or whatever, that when we start off, we don't necessarily believe we could own 3 businesses, or we could fly around the world speaking to people.
Correct. And that is exactly where I was. I can afford my house. I can start a new business and share my message with the world without being scared of doing so. That is really where I started. The idea of owning multiple investment properties and getting passive income really wasn't on my radar. My radar was more of a survival mode when I first started the affirmation. I want to be clear that it's an evolution over time, and you can just get some sort of financial mindset journal. That's, I use those black and white composition books. That's really where I take all my notes. I do a lot of stuff out of them. I have tons of them now. And I just wrote it in there. And then I'd write down keys to, when it came to self-worth, like, am I worthy of this? Or how am I showing up here? And I really start to be more introspective on it versus waiting for everybody else's approval. And that's when a huge shift started to happen. Was, wait a second, how many more degrees do I need to get in order to prove myself? Like, why am I proving myself to anybody? I want to prove myself that I can accomplish things. I want to try new things. Don't be scared of trying new things, because failure actually, and that's why divorce was such a pivotal moment in my life, was I consider that my biggest failure in life. And although it didn't happen right away, over the course of the next several years, that failure actually led to all these things opening up, because I started to realize that failure is just a stepping stone to achieve something great in your life, right? But we're so scared to just fail. Women especially, we're terrified of failing. And it's okay, because you will fail along the way. That's one of those acceptance moments.
I think
But
a lot of this is conditioning.
yeah.
Conditioning
Yes.
is like culture conditioning,
Yes.
the woman in the house conditioning, parenting has changed now. You know,
Yes.
you nearly need to tell the new generation to think of others and not themselves.
Which is funny, because I grew up, Catherine, my parents owned businesses in town. So it was like, Catherine, make sure you don't do the wrong thing, so that, people know what's going on, and we have that child that did X, Y, and Z. Or just get a really good corporate job that has great benefits, Catherine. Like these were the things I was taught, right? And I was conditioned. So I'm and not that my parents did anything wrong. That's not what I'm saying, because parents do what they do what they do at the time that is the best of their abilities, just like I'm doing with my two daughters. Mm-hmm. And, but the paradigm shift here is, I was taught to be meek and quiet and keep inside myself. Mm-hmm. So when I started to open up or blossom, or, people use the lotus flower as a symbol. When I started to have my petals start to open up, is where I authentically became comfortable with me. And that's really important, to be comfortable with you and for your worth, and just to really be happy with everything you've done thus far in your life, and know that you can achieve so much more. I hope that resonates.
It does, because it's funny, like, people want to change their lives, but you have to accept who you are. Like, we spend far too much time thinking, I'm ugly and I'm this and I'm not pretty enough to be rich, and we have the most bizarre thinking that just doesn't help us.
Without a doubt. Or we won't even go for a promotion at work, because we need to know 90 to 100% of that position. And honestly, where statistics have shown a man will apply for a position knowing 40%. That is, just look at the disparity there. If we want to know everything before we apply for a position, that is always going to hold us back, because how are we going to grow if we know everything for the next position, right? We're never going to know everything for the next position, or for the next stage in life, or for that next step in our business. We just have to have faith and trust in ourselves that we'll learn it along the way.
And, self-worth and financial freedom and passive income and investment properties and all of that, like, for women, I reckon there's a lot of women out there, I don't know the stats, that don't even believe that's possible.
Without a doubt. I didn't think it was possible. It just grew into that. I never thought that I would own an investment property where I'd be making a lot of income off of it. Ever in my life. I thought I'd never get out of credit card debt. Are you kidding me? Like, that was my first thing, was let's not lose the house and let's pay off credit card debt. Like, let's get that in order, because that's when you don't have that financial worry or woe, is when you actually can dream of other things in your life. When you're stuck, because I know it myself, when I was stuck, and when I have clients that are stuck in the inertia of month to month, pay my expenses, living paycheck to paycheck, how do you have the opportunity to dream about what the next thing is, right? Because your mind is, let me just survive right now. You're in survival mode. But when all of that gets removed out of the way, and it becomes easier, and then there's some extra cash flow, that's when you have this opportunity to dream and to say, what could I accomplish? What if I tried X, Y, and Z? How could that change my life? And that's really gets exciting for people. It's like, oh my God, I can have the possibility of something else than just the day-to-day hustle and bustle, right?
I love that. Katherine, we've had an amazing conversation. For somebody who's listening today, they know that their self-worth's holding them back from creating their dream of financial freedom, getting the investment property, really, saying, I can build wealth and I can live a life of freedom. What would you say to them about money, self-worth equals wealth? here you are, here's your self-worth. What can they do? Like, what's that kind of one thing?
The one thing is to believe in your future self. That's probably not believe in yourself now, because we all have our self-doubt now, right? Believe in what your future self can accomplish. So have a 1-year goal, whatever that is. It might be paying off credit card debt. It might be having that daily affirmation that you read to yourself. It might be a vacation you want to go on. And the reason I'm tying it to a year out is because you can transform yourself over the course of 12 months. You can see yourself in a different light in the future when you're stuck right now. So really look out a year from now. Where do you want to be? And start putting the plan in place to get there. Own your self-worth, because we are all, everybody has incredible talents, incredible gifts, and is incredible. And when you show up for that person, everything will start to change in your life. Everything will shift. So that's really what I want to tell everybody.
And I love that, because when you set a goal for a year and you actually accomplish it, it kind of develops a muscle and you get stronger in yourself. You get the evidence, and then you take the next step and the next step. And as Katherine shared with us today, that this comes over time once we start taking the steps in the right direction. And another golden tip I want to add to Katherine's amazing tip is the difference between the successful and unsuccessful is self-doubt and everything else that's going on. We act anyway, right?
Yes. You face it. Yes, without a doubt.
So Katherine, tell me, this has been amazing. How do I find out more about you?
Well, I have, my website is katherinedean.co. Most likely it'll be shared in the notes. And then if you want my Wealth to Freedom Roadmap are 7 simple steps to go to wealth creator distress to wealth creator success. You can just go to wealthtofreedomroadmap.com and you can get the free roadmap, and it'll give you your 7 simple steps to go to wealth creator success. So yeah, real simple.
Love it. And thank you for being here. And I just want to say to everybody, if you've enjoyed this recording of this podcast, head on over to Financial Freedom Podcast Facebook group. This is where you and I can get intimate. It's a safe haven where you can reach out and get the answers to your questions, and let's create that financial freedom together. All right, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Financial Freedom Podcast, to creating wealth, investing, and developing your money mindset. To get started today on your journey, head on over to www.lornapoole.com and grab your free course, 5 steps to breaking free from your poverty mindset and accelerating your journey to financial freedom. See you there.